Hey, welcome to the Simple Nutrition Podcast, a show that helps you learn practical and actual nutrition tips from an expert. I am your host, Leonila Campos, a registered dietitian with over 8 years of experience in the nutrition field. Back to Simple Nutrition Insights. I'm your host, Leonila Campos, registered dietitian and founder of Fueled by Leo. Today, we're diving into a topic that connects deeply with women's health, periods, hormones, and how what we put in our bodies matters. Joining me is Arielle Lupos, founder of Flower Girl, a sustainable and non-toxic period underwear brand, empowering women to feel confident, safe, and connected to their bodies. We'll explore the hidden toxins in menstrual products, how they affect our hormones, and the role nutrition plays in supporting a healthy cycle. Arielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with a little bit about you, inspire you to create Flower Girl.
Yeah, so honestly, it came from what felt like solving a personal problem. I wasn't happy with any of the disposable products that were available to women basically my entire life. And then I started wearing period underwear, loved it as an option. However, again, I felt like the quality just wasn't great and I couldn't understand why, up to this point, there just weren't comfortable, cute, body safe options available for women. So I wanted to do something taking advantage of the fact that, I live in Los Angeles. So I started driving around to different manufacturers, production facilities. I learned a lot about textiles, the difference between, synthetic fibers versus natural fibers. And ultimately, that led me to creating Flower Girl. And, I'm pretty proud. I use top quality materials for the underwear. Wears extremely well over time. And most importantly, it uses materials that are safe for women to wear against their most intimate parts.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's something that we don't think about, right? And of course, we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's amazing to see the development of the product, right? That came from a need. And I'm sure all the work that you've put into it as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It is crazy to me. I feel like as consumers in general, we're so, I hate to say it, but like fibbed to, from like the food that we eat to the clothing that we wear to the, most importantly, our skincare and menstrual products. There's not a lot of regulation around transparency. And I think consumers are finally starting to wake up though to, what's actually in a lot of the products we've used our entire lives.
And making that change, right? Which is amazing. So you mentioned many menstrual products, right, as contain harmful chemicals. Can you explain what some of these are and how they affect our health?
Yeah, absolutely. So shockingly enough, the first study ever done on tampons was in 2024. So just last year. And some top Ivy League schools, actually dissected, if you will, about 30 different samples from organic and non-organic brands. And in every sample, they found lead and other heavy metals, arsenic, phthalates, BPA, just like all of these toxins in every sample tested. And, a lot of the cotton, so often, whether it's organic or not, it's grown being sprayed with pesticides. So then, the UK did a study just this year and found glyphosate in pretty much all of the samples tested. So unfortunately, I think, again, we're just kind of waking up to what's actually inside of these products. And I'm not sure if you are on TikTok or I don't know what your feed is like, but mine over the last few weeks, somebody actually opened up one of the Always pads, the really popular brand that consumes a lot of this shelf space in the grocery stores, Always. And they exposed what looked to be mold in the pad. They were shining their pads up to the light, and they just looked disgusting and dirty. And what's most shocking to me about that actually is not the fact that it looked dirty when you held it up to the light. It's the fact that women were still buying these products, because if you look at the ingredients list on an Always box of pads, for example, you're going to find a ton of ingredients on there that are toxic. So It's almost like a lot of these brands aren't even really hiding it from us. They're straight up saying, there's a ton of synthetic fibers in here. There's ethanol. There's like literally poison in these pads, and women are still choosing to wear them.
And I think, it's when I think about the relationship in what you're talking about in nutrition, right? A lot of the times my clients don't know how to read a full label. And, as you are explaining, looking at the ingredients list, I've never looked at the ingredients list, right, of a pad or a feminine product, because we almost do things based on what we've done in the past, right? And so it's not until we become aware
Yeah.
and we have the knowledge that we're like, okay, this is what I should look for. The same thing the way I teach my clients, right, about food and like reading the nutrition facts label and ingredients list. So it's amazing to see that,
So
hey,
true.
even with our products that we wear, that we use, right, we also have to be aware of what's in them. So it's amazing that you're
So
essentially educating the public on that too.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point. And I think that food, was kind of our first example of how marketing shifted, right? Like, how everyone, I feel like over the last decade at least, got really into organic labels and really, to your point, understanding the ingredients list, And my hypothesis is that clothing and our menstrual products and skincare, all of those things are next, is my hope.
Yeah, most
at least.
definitely. Education definitely plays a huge role, right? And understanding why it's that we need to choose certain things. Amazing. What do you think was the biggest challenge transitioning from, e-commerce to building a wellness-driven brand?
The biggest challenge, I would say, was actually getting into the product development aspect of the business itself. My background is in e-commerce, so I naively went into product development thinking like, I can throw a website up. I can, do email marketing, social media. I'm not like afraid to do any of the storytelling around why this product is so important. For me, it was really creating the best possible product. And I'll be transparent with you. When I first started, I had no idea how to manufacture a product. I didn't realize how complex it was to create something physical. I didn't know textiles. But as I continued, it was like a 2-year period of learning and then creating samples and testing this product. And as I was learning about textiles, I was like, oh my gosh, I keep finding better and better material that's PFAS free, non-toxic. It's made from trees. It's natural fibers versus synthetic is finally like what I landed on. So really just creating product development, I would say, was like the most challenging, but also yet, the most rewarding, because I was like, I'm not going to launch with a product that feels and looks like and uses the same materials as everybody else who is not really creating a product with women's bodies in mind, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're really honing into what obviously your mission, right? But what you really want out of this product, right? And what you want to represent, which is not, as you mentioned, is not easy, right, to get to. And I'm sure the bumps and challenges that you have faced throughout the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a whole ordeal, that's for sure.
What does the phrase getting back in flow mean to you personally and as part of your brand mission?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So I love it because this is something that I didn't go into the business thinking was going to be like a huge value for the brand. But I've found over having so many conversations with women that I really want to encourage women to get back in tune with their bodies. I believe that women are the most intuitive beings in the world. And so our society nowadays, so often we are distracted. It's so noisy. We are so out of touch with our bodies. And I genuinely believe that, by making changes, for example, like using products that allow our bodies to flow as they're naturally designed and intended to, making choices about living a non-toxic lifestyle or eating better food and nutrition, nourishing our bodies, like all of that to me is getting in flow. And when we do that, I believe that we receive so many downloads. Like we are no longer, anxious or depressed. We are like in flow
Yeah,
with
I
our
love that so
bodies.
much because you are absolutely correct, right? With all the women that I work with, because especially if we are parents, right, or caregivers,
Yeah.
we forget about ourselves, right? We almost like are in autopilot and like just going through the motions. And it makes me that when I talk to my female clients and they're like, yeah, I don't know where I'm hungry, right? Or I don't know if I had enough to eat, or, you know, I know I'm stressed, but I don't know how stressed I am, right? And so as we peel the layers and we
Yeah.
understand why is it that we are not in tune with our bodies anymore, right? Why is it that we don't
Yeah.
know what we need, what we want, right? And it's because there's, you know, as you mentioned, there's so much noise, there's a lot of things happening around us that we forget about those basic things, basic needs, right? And so I really love that phrase, getting back in flow.
Yeah. Thank you.
So many women don't realize how their nutrition and environmental exposures interact. From your perspective, how does non toxic living support hormone balance?
Oh, it's everything, And again, I unfortunately think that we are just now getting into understanding this information from like the labels and manufacturers of these products. Like, I want to use here fragrance as an example, right? Like, there's so much coming out right now around how fragrance like is one of the most disrupting things we could use for our bodies, for our hormones. It's so tied to infertility. I read a study the other day where somebody eliminated fragrance for 28 days, and that alone just allowed their body to totally come back into balance. So when you think about well, fragrance in general, but then all of these
Mhm.
products that contain fragrances, right? So then you've got laundry detergent, we've got in home candles, we've got the air fresheners, like anything, there's menstrual products, with fragrance in it. Like those are the absolute worst. So I think just understanding, ingredients again and how these things throw your body out of whack and your hormones is just really important to be
Right.
mindful
Yeah. And
of.
it can be overwhelming, right? Because there's so much out there. It's almost like when, you know, I have clients that say there's so much information about nutrition out there. It's conflicting. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
similarly here, right? There's so much information about environmental toxins and it can be overwhelming, right? And so at least getting some information where
Yeah.
you're like, okay, this is a product, right, that you can use and it's non-toxic, right? At least we have something that we don't have to worry about in a way.
Right. Right. Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
growing awareness about endocrine disruptors, right? And it kind of ties into what we just talked about. But can we unpack how these chemicals and products can influence metabolism, PMS, fertility?
Yeah. So, these products, again, they really are just wreaking havoc on the body. So they cause a lot of inflammation and ultimately painful, debilitating periods. And our society has sadly normalized a lot of this, especially for women. We've normalized, just kind of like the tough and culture. And that, in fact, is not normal at all. Like something that I've really learned through this journey is how our period in particular can be looked at as a monthly report card from our body. And our period should work like clockwork. Like it shouldn't be irregular. So to me, it's like one of the best signs, things to use to track your health. You should be getting it every month, basically at the same time. It should not be debilitating. It should not wreak havoc on your life. You should not bleed so much that you're going through your clothes and pads every hour or two. And yeah, I think that, again, our society has like normalized this idea of PMS and endo
Mhm.
and PCOS, sadly, is something that so
Right.
often either goes undiagnosed or we're just starting to, I think, help women diagnose it. But I think looking globally, because to kind of what you said earlier, like it can be very intimidating and scary because we live in a world where there's like literally PFAS in the water. But looking globally at how you can really change your lifestyle based on to make the most impact, I think that's where like I would start. And, for women in particular, I think again, like skincare, menstrual care, all of the things that are touching us or impacting us most directly.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
look at that.
I love the analogy of our monthly report card, right? Because you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
I do notice, right, and just anecdotally with my clients that, if they have so much stress, right, they do see a change in their cycle, or how they are feeling, right? And so I think it's important. Again, we come back to getting back in flow, right? Like really, really knowing our bodies and understanding like what our bodies are telling us, right? It may seem like this is annoying, right? But I think once you get so in tune with your body, you are going to know it at such a different level where you are going to know, okay, this doesn't feel right? Like there's something happening here. And I always tell my clients, you should know your body more than anyone in this world, right? You should know what feels right. You should know what you need to change, what you need to adjust to help you, right, in just overall health and well-being.
Yeah,
I love that. And so you kind of mentioned, right, like different ways to reduce essentially toxic load. Are there any other practical steps that you would want to share with the
Yeah, again, it's really looking globally, I feel like, at the products you're using. And for me, like what was most important was everyday items. So, I started obviously with my menstrual products, but then I looked at my makeup and my lotion because through learning all of this, I was like, our skin is our largest organ. And I don't want to be using a lotion every day that my body is absorbing and eating up that has any sort of fragrance or any of these unnatural ingredients in it. Because again, going back to the hormone conversation, that's going to have way more of a direct impact on my hormones than, for example, like a house cleaning product. But I'm pretty inundated at this point. Swapped out, all of that as well. My household cleaning items, my laundry detergent, all of the things. So, but I would definitely start with like what is closest and most absorbed by your skin.
Yeah, most definitely. Right. Looking at essentially doing like a whole list, right? An inventory of the things that we use. And then swapping them slowly. It's great. Part of your mission is helping women feel more in tune with their bodies, as we talked about. What does that look like day to day for you?
Day to day for me, one of the most important things that I do, and I hate to say this and sound cliche, I'm going to call it meditating, but it's really for me, it's like just taking any time that I can, even if it's 5 and 10 minutes, to just be with myself and be alone with my thoughts, to put my electronics away, not be on my phone. There are days where I love like a guided meditation and sitting in front of like the red light. There are days when all I can do and have time for is like 5 minutes on the sofa just to get and be alone with my thoughts is so transformative for me. And it's something that can sound really like basic and maybe even scary or stupid at first, but I would encourage anybody to just spend that time alone, because I get so many downloads in those moments when, I can just like, my mind's not racing and I'm like, oh, like how am I feeling right now? Just really checking in with myself.
Yeah, I love that so much because again, we are on the go all the time, right? And we are stimulated. Like I think of myself, and I'm a mom and I have 2 boys. So at the end of the day, I'm way overstimulated. And so just having even 5 minutes to myself where I'm like just breathing or just like not looking at anything or nothing, it really helps me, right? And the way that I explain it to my clients too, right? It almost calms the alarms off in your body, right? Which is the cortisol essentially that it's affecting us. And so when we do that, you feel so calm, and that tells your mind and your body that, hey, we're okay, we're safe. Things are going to be okay. And so I think we definitely need to practice that more, right? Just to feel calm, because we do live in such a busy environment, and it's a lot, right? Internally, mentally, physically. And so even having those 5 minutes can make a huge difference. How do you think conversations around periods and hormones are shifting Are women becoming more open and informed?
I hope so. It feels like it. And I don't know if I'm just like more in tune with it now because of the work that I'm doing. But no, I really do think that it is becoming more of a conversation. I'm seeing way more podcasts have guests with, with female doctors who have studied our cycles and who talk about cycle syncing and the importance of, understanding your body and what phase of the month you're in to better understand, your period. And that's, fortunately how I've learned a lot of this information. So I really do think it is becoming more of an open conversation. And, another one of my goals is to really destigmatize it. I can't believe that, 50% of the population, 51% get a period. And it's something we've been hush hush about for so long. Like, why?
Yeah. I think about that too, right? Because it's almost like, oh no, you should not talk about that, right? Like it's taboo or whatever. I don't know. But it's so natural, right? This is something that we go through, and it's part of our biology. It's part of our evolution. And so, I am happy to hear that there are more women, right? More providers, more communication around this topic. Of course, this is a whole different topic, but hormones, right? As we go into perimenopause, as we go into menopause, I'm seeing more research, right? And more talking about that because we're all going to go through it. I mean, at least women, we're going through it. And so we need to talk about it, right? It's not like it's painful and well, that's part of, it's part of being a woman. Well, it is, but it is not, right? Like how can we help women?
Yeah.
So I am seeing the same shift, and I am happy about that. And I think, we should talk about it.
I agree. Yeah, totally. Not only talk about it to help one another out and to know, we aren't going through this alone or any of these symptoms. It just brings more awareness to everything. But also, it's so interesting to me that like periods used to be sacred and honored and seen as like a time of rest and reset. And then, our society, things changed, but they're like, it's like the actual portal for life, it's like, that's what ultimately creates life. So how have we shunned this thing for so long?
What's one myth about menstrual health you love to debunk?
One myth that periods, are painful, or that, it's something you just kind of have to push through and work through and deal with, or, push to the side. I, again, through everything I've learned at this point, our periods should come seamlessly. We should be able to live with them and go about our days as normal. So I completely want to debunk that, it's okay to have a week out of the month where you like have a debilitating, period.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we mentioned, right, like when we really listen to our bodies and we honor why they're asking us, we can see that shift, right? Okay, maybe this week, I'm feeling more tired. What does my body need right now, right? Maybe more rest or something warm, right? Whatever the case may be. And that can help with the symptoms. So I think seeing it as it is part of our month to month, right? So how can we live with it a little bit better, right? How can we make it better? And so when I think about, right, specifically your product, is that I think going to a pharmacy, right, or CVS or Target or wherever I decide to go, and I try to find a pad, right? And again, and I'm not looking at the ingredients list, so by just like trying to choose one that, okay, maybe I want to try that one. I tried one that had, I don't know, like a mint something, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I hated it. I was like, what is this? And it was so uncomfortable, and I was like, I'm never gonna get that.
Did you say
it was like minty?
A mint?
And yeah, it's probably shouldn't say this in the podcast, but it was horrible. I felt like I don't know. It was
no. I think that it's so important to share because like I could see why me before creating this product, I could see the allure of like, oh, maybe this is going to like make me feel better, or you associate mint with like a hygienic product, right? Like, again, unfortunately, this was actually something really interesting too. As I mentioned, periods used to be sacred and seen as like a sacred time, just something to be celebrated and honored. And then it was in the Industrial Revolution, like around the 1950s, and they started marketing them as like hygienic. And like that's when the fragrances got introduced and all these things. And in fact, I mean, that is like so incredibly damaging. We know now, and we only know that because of recent studies, that it's so damaging on the body, like that they're not something. In fact, the vagina is like self-cleansing, like we don't need fragrances or even soap really to like clean.
Yeah. It made me think about like, wow, who designed this? Because it was just so wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, but when we think about your product, right, like we don't have to on a monthly basis go to the store, right, and try to decide, okay, which one do I want this month? Or like, do I want to experiment, right, and like hate it? So, I think that's amazing that you have been able to come up with a product, right, that is safe as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And extremely durable, as someone who, again, I used to wear period underwear and I would get really upset with like the quality and just like they really didn't hold up as well as I wanted, or they honestly would start to smell. And, I found material that's antimicrobial, antibacterial, it's odor controlling. It is, reduces the growth of bacteria. It's completely PFAS free, non-toxic. So I really invested in the quality of materials, I will say. And I did try to come in as, a more luxurious item, I would say, compared to what's currently on the market.
Most definitely. I was looking at your website and you wouldn't think that, they're considered, they're specifically for your cycle, right? For your period. Like you can absolutely wear them throughout the month. So they are. Really nice.
Thank you.
Right, yeah, you definitely accomplished that. So what are your top 3 must-haves for a toxin-free, hormone-friendly lifestyle?
Okay, definitely period underwear. I hate tampons, so gotta lead with that. Next, I would say, toxic or clean skincare has become my next most important. Like if I'm using any makeup, any of my serums or lotions. And then I would say toxic-free candles also is really important. I love lighting candles. And unfortunately, again, learned, if you're not burning clean candles, you're likely just burning a lot of, again, these like fragrances and hormone disrupting chemicals into the air that you're breathing directly.
Yeah, that's a perfect one, especially as we go into the holidays, right? And we want candles and have a cozy home, but that's a good one. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you share a few simple self-care rituals or foods that help you feel grounded during your cycle?
Ooh. So this has been super interesting, but my body will literally crave like red meat when I am like about to get my period. I am very, I notice in my phases, there's like 1 week, my luteal phase when I'm extremely hungry, an ovulation. And then, I gotta say, I crave the sweets. So I try as much as possible, to get like vegan goods if I can, but also like I'm gonna live my life. Like I feel like I've done enough globally to, have toxic free products that like I'm eating the cookie, I'm eating the cakes, I'm eating pizza, I'm eating burgers. Like when my body craves it. That might not be a great answer for you because I know you're a dietitian, but like I just don't restrict myself if I want it, because ultimately for the most part I am eating very well, but it's like those times when my body really wants something.
Yeah, I love that. I think being able to, again, know your body, right? And knowing, okay, this is what my body is needing right now, right? And honoring that and being okay, right, with having different foods. That's one of the things that I teach my clients, right? Like there's not foods that are bad, right? We shouldn't put labels on foods. And so if we like something, we want something, by being okay with it, being flexible with having them. So, and you're listening to your body, right? So that's the end goal. Amazing. What's next for Flower Girl, and how can women connect with you with your mission?
My ultimate goal would be to like really expand this line. I would love to do into apparel as well, non-toxic and like sustainable clothing and just like really comfy comfort clothes, and perhaps like a whole bodega, style of like non-toxic products. And if you're interested, in checking out the product, my website is flowergirl. The Instagram is also at flowergirl.co_. And if you want to send an email, send a DM, you're going to be talking to me, and I'm more than happy to answer any more questions, to continue talking about this stuff. I absolutely love it. So please, I hope nobody.
Arielle, thank you for sharing your journey and for helping us see how much menstrual wellness, nutrition, and self-awareness are intertwined. To our listeners, remember, being in flow isn't just about our cycle. It's about living in sync with our bodies through the foods we eat, the products we choose, and how we care for ourselves. Thank you so much, Arielle. Any final thoughts, anything else that you would like to share?
No, I feel like we really covered everything that I was going to talk about. So thank you so much for sharing your space with me and for the conversation. This is like literally my favorite thing to talk about ever.
Yeah,
so I appreciate it.
Until next time, stay nourished and stay in flow. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
This podcast, the links and resources provided are for the purpose to educate only and are not a replacement for medical advice or nutrition therapy. I suggest you seek out the help of a trained professional to help you with your specific situation and needs.